Hey, welcome back to the channel. You guys won't believe the absolute nightmare I got myself into. And honestly, this one is probably the single most insane thing I've ever seen a homeowners association president do. Like, ever. I'm talking about a full-on, attempted break-in, a drill-to-the-lock situation, while I was literally 8,000 miles away trying to sip a cocktail on a beach in Bali, and all because I didn't want a 60-year-old woman with a clipboard to snoop in my living room. So, let me set the scene for you first. My neighborhood, Maplewood Creek, it's one of those cookie-cutter suburbs. You know the type. Built maybe 15 years ago where every house is slightly different, but basically the same beige or gray, and everything has to be perfect. Military-grade lawn perfection, garbage bins hidden by 7 a.m. sharp, not a single basketball hoop allowed in the driveway. I get it, I bought the house, and look, I'm a pretty chill guy. I work in graphic design. I just want to come home, play my games, maybe order a pizza, and be left alone, and I've never once, in the 4 years I've lived here, been fined for anything. I'm a rule follower, simple as that. But, you know how in every HOA community there's that one person who doesn't just enforce the rules, they are the rules? That was Brenda Sterling. We called her the Maven, and trust me, the name was dripping with sarcasm. Brenda was a retiree, drove this big, menacing black SUV, wore massive sunglasses indoors sometimes, and her only hobby in life seemed to be cruising the streets with her worn-out leather-bound notebook, looking for violations. She wasn't just patrolling, she was hunting. She'd cite you for the wrong shade of white trim, or for having your Christmas lights up 1 hour past the official January 15th deadline. She was a power junkie, and that clipboard was her fix. For 4 years I'd kept a low profile, just waving politely, never making eye contact too long, and generally being the most boring neighbor imaginable. Then came my Bali trip. 10 glorious days, the first real vacation I'd taken in 5 years of soul-crushing deadlines. I basically turned off my phone, left my Ring camera on emergency alerts only, and told myself, Alex, disconnect. I was 4 days in, fully bronzed, halfway through a terrible romance novel and a fantastic Mai Tai, watching the waves roll in, when my peace was absolutely shattered. My phone vibrated, an emergency alert. It wasn't my work, it was the Ring app. Person detected at front door. I figured, whatever, maybe a courier missed the no delivery note, or maybe it was a kid on a bike. I almost ignored it, but the alerts kept coming, one after the other. Finally, I sighed, pulled up the app, and that's when my stomach just plummeted right through the rattan chair. Staring back at me from 8,000 miles away, right there on my doorstep, was the Maven, Brenda Sterling. And next to her, kneeling in front of my beautiful, brand-new steel door, was this young guy in blue coveralls, holding a huge, yellow battery-powered drill, and he was getting ready to work on my lock. The adrenaline hit me so fast I had to physically grip the arms of my chair. This wasn't a joke. She was literally trying to drill her way into my house. I mashed the live view button. The audio kicked in, and the sound of that drill screaming against the metal was agonizing. It was the sound of my privacy being violated in real time. Hey, I yelled into the microphone, my voice shaking and cracking. What the hell is going on there? Stop drilling. The locksmith, this poor guy who clearly just wanted a paycheck, jumped a mile and yanked the drill back. He looked completely bewildered, staring up at the fisheye lens. But the Maven? She didn't even flinch. She leaned right into the camera, her face filling the frame, distorted and terrifying like a cartoon villain. Oh, you're watching, she said, her voice tinny and completely devoid of emotion through the speaker. Good. Maybe you can explain why you haven't responded to my certified letter regarding unapproved internal renovations. I am in Bali, Brenda. I shouted back, getting weird looks from the couple next to me. I am not renovating anything. Get that man away from my lock right now, or I'm calling the police. We are conducting an emergency compliance inspection, she stated, adjusting her ridiculous sunglasses. We suspect you have removed a load-bearing wall to create a media room, a clear threat to the structural integrity of the community. Per the CC and RS, Article 7, Section 2, the board has the right to access any unit for inspection to preserve the integrity of the community. I knocked. You didn't answer. The locksmith is almost through. We will be in and out. That is breaking and entering. I screamed, my vacation completely vaporized by pure, white-hot fury. I don't consent to this. If you open that door, I'm suing you and the HOA until you're selling pencils on the street corner." She actually laughed at me. It was a dry, humorless, little huff of air. "The police know who I am, Mr. Foster. I am the president. We have an easement. Keep drilling." She ordered the locksmith, not even looking at him. The locksmith, bless his heart. He looked at her, then back at my camera, then back at his drill. He shifted his weight nervously. "Look, lady," he said, his voice hesitant. "The owner is screaming at me not to. That's a massive liability nightmare. I am not getting involved in a felony for a compliance check." "You work for me," she hissed, moving close to him. "I hired you. I will personally sign the invoice." I quickly switched apps, called the local police non-emergency line, explained I had a live video feed of the HOA president attempting to force entry into my home while I was out of the country. I switched back to the Ring app. The locksmith was packing up his gear, and Brenda was blocking his path, waving her clipboard around like a flimsy paper weapon. "You are in breach of contract if you leave," she was yelling. "I'm not catching a felony for your inspection, lady," he replied, walking fast toward his van. "Call someone else." She stood there on my porch, absolutely fuming. She turned back to the camera, composing herself quickly, pulling down her jacket. "You are making a massive mistake, Alex. Denying access to the board carries a fine of $500 per incident. And since I cannot verify the safety of the interior, I am going to have to deem the property uninhabitable until inspected. I'll fine you for every single day I cannot get in." "Get off my property, Brenda," I said, my voice dangerously low. "I'm waiting for the next locksmith," she announced, crossing her arms, planting her feet. "I have all day." 10 minutes later, a squad car rolled up. I watched, immensely satisfied, as 2 officers walked up the driveway. Brenda's whole demeanor changed instantly. She went from snarling tyrant to delicate victim in the blink of an eye, gesturing wildly at her clipboard, pointing at my house. The officer just shook his head, cut her off mid-sentence, and pointed her to the street, hand resting on his belt. Cops don't care about the CC and RS. They care about trespassing and vandalism. She finally threw her hands up, stomped down the driveway, got in her black SUV, and peeled out like a teenager late for school. The officer walked up to my door, gave the mangled lock a look. The locksmith had done some serious, ugly damage before quitting, gave the camera a small wave, and left. When I finally flew back, absolutely exhausted and jet-lagged after what should have been a relaxing trip, the first thing I saw was a neon orange sticker plastered to my front door. Violation notice. It listed failure to grant access, verbal abuse of a board member, and failure to maintain exterior hardware in good condition, because apparently the chewed-up lock was unsightly. The total fines? $3,800. I ripped the sticker off, tried to put my key in the lock, and of course, it wouldn't go in. Metal burrs from the drilling blocked the keyway. Unbelievable. I had to walk around, punch the code into the garage keypad, and crawl into my own house like a thief. I was ready to absolutely explode. I wanted to drive over there and scream until my lungs gave out, but then I remembered something I once read. Anger is good, but strategy is better. I sat down at my kitchen table, opened a much-needed beer, and pulled out the infamous red, leather-bound binder, the CC and RS. Most people use it to level wobbly tables, but I spent the next 2 days poring over every mind-numbing section, every tedious footnote. Fence heights, trash can protocols, paint swatches. And then, on page 114, section 7.2, I found it, the cold, hard legal truth. It read, "The board may enter a unit without prior notice only in the event of a bona fide emergency involving immediate threat to life or property, i.e., fire, active water leak, or gas leak visible from the exterior." She had claimed emergency compliance inspection. There was no fire, no flood, no gas leak. She just suspected a renovation. That wasn't an emergency. That was curiosity armed with a drill. She had no legal ground, even by her own beloved bylaws. But just fighting the fine wasn't enough. I needed a weapon. So I kept reading, and on page 92, section 5.1, I found the nuclear option, removal of directors. The rules were clear. 35 signatures from the 150 homes could call a special meeting to vote on the removal of any board member, with or without cause. The vote only needed a 40% quorum to be valid. I did the math. 60 households needed to show up or send a proxy. This was doable. The following Saturday, I didn't just go door-to-door complaining. I went armed with cinematic evidence. I had the video of her ordering the drill. I had the video of the police kicking her off my property, and I loaded them onto a tablet. I started with my immediate neighbors. Hey, I'd say, did you hear about the break-in attempt last week? Is everyone okay? They'd ask, concerned. It wasn't a burglar. I'd reply, hitting play. The reaction was universal. Shock, then disgust, then the floodgates opened. Everyone had a Brenda story. Mike, 2 doors down, had been fined because his lawn was half an inch too high. Sarah, across the street, told me the maven had peered over her fence and fined her for having a decorative bird bath that was not consistent with the approved landscape aesthetic. Brenda had been terrorizing us for years, using the threat of fines like a cudgel, betting on the fact that we were all too busy, too tired, or too scared to fight back. I'm calling a special meeting to remove her, I told them. I need your signature, and if you can't come, I need your proxy. I got my 35 signatures in an hour. By the end of the weekend, I had over 60. Brenda, sensing the heat, went absolutely on the offensive. She hit me with 2 more fines, improper solicitation and harassment of the board, and then sent out an absolutely unhinged community-wide email blast. She claimed a rogue element was trying to dismantle the safety protocols, and she implied I was running a meth lab or something equally dangerous inside my home because of my refusal to allow inspection. I didn't respond. I just printed the email out and added it to my file of evidence. Her hysteria was my greatest campaign tool. The night of the meeting, the community center basement was absolutely packed. I mean, standing room only. The air conditioning was struggling. Over 90 households were represented, both in person and by proxy. The quorum was completely blown out of the water. Brenda sat at the head table, her face a tight mask of cold indignation, staring at the wall. Order, she yelled, banging the gavel. I see a lot of faces here who have never contributed to this community before. It's a shame it takes a disruption to get you involved. We are here to vote, Mike shouted from the back. She launched into her usual, impressive, yet completely delusional speech about the sacred duty of the HOA and how individual privacy does not supersede the collective good. She even used the phrase, "If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear." She finished, sat down, and gave the room a tight, smug little smile, convinced she had scared them into submission. Now, she said, looking down the table, does the petitioner, Mr. Foster, have anything to say? I stood up. I didn't shout. I didn't try to give a dramatic closing statement. I just walked to the front of the room, plugged my laptop into the projector they usually used for budget presentations, and brought up the first video clip. I don't want to talk much, I said to the packed room. I just want to show you what an emergency compliance inspection actually looks like. On the massive projector screen, 20 feet wide, everyone watched that poor locksmith drill my door. They heard the loud, agonizing screeching. They heard me screaming from Bali. And then they heard Brenda Sterling, the voice of the HOA, the supposed protector of our property values, say in her calm, cruel voice, "I'm the HOA. Keep drilling." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the corner. Then I played the second clip, the police arriving, the officers telling her to leave, and I paused the frame right on her angry, defeated face as the cop pointed her away. The bylaws say emergency access is for fire or flood, I said, looking right at her, but addressing the room. There was no fire. There was no flood. She wanted to break down my door because she suspected a renovation. If she'll do it to me, she will do it to you. If you leave a window open, if you forget to lock your back gate, she believes she has the right to walk in. Brenda shot up, trembling, her face pale. This is taken out of context. This is a manipulated video. Deep fakes. You can do anything with AI these days. It's from the Ring app, Brenda, I replied calmly. It's time-stamped. And we have the police report number if anyone wants to check. He is a violator, she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. He is trying to destroy this community because he doesn't want to follow the rules. Vote, I said to the room. The counting took 10 agonizing minutes. The other 2 board members sat stiffly, physically leaning away from Brenda, who was staring fixedly at the wall, refusing to look at anyone. Finally, the vice president stood up. "We have established a quorum," he announced. 92 households represented in person or by proxy. In the matter of the removal of the president, 83 votes in favor of removal, 9 votes against. A massive wave of relief washed over the room, followed by a low, satisfying murmur. "This is ridiculous." Brenda slammed her hands on the table. "You cannot do this. I founded this board. I wrote these bylaws. And we just used them, Brenda," the vice president said quietly, finally finding his voice. "It's a valid vote. You've got to step down." She gathered her clipboard, her pens, and what little dignity she had left, and she marched out of that basement like she was Marie Antoinette being led to the guillotine. She slammed the door so hard the community center sign rattled against the wall. But I wasn't done. Mike, bless his perpetually frustrated soul, shouted from the back. "I nominate Alex Foster for the vacancy." "Second it." Mrs. Higgins yelled. I hesitated. I hated HOAs. I never wanted to be on the board. But I looked at the faces in the room, the people who had been bullied for years, and I realized if I didn't step into the vacuum, some other power-hungry person might. Or worse, the Maven might claw her way back next year. "I'll do it," I said. "But I have one condition. We change the locks on the community office, and we audit the power." I was voted in unanimously. The fallout was swift and incredibly satisfying. First, we waived all $3,800 of those vindictive fines. Gone. Second, as a new board member, I got access to all the legal records. It turned out the Maven had spent over $5,000 of our HOA dues on legal consultations, specifically trying to figure out how to legally force entry into properties. She was using our money to plot how to invade our privacy. We couldn't get the money back, but we exposed it in the very next community newsletter. The public shaming was exquisite. And third, and this was the sweet cherry on top of my revenge sundae, 6 months later, I proposed a bylaw amendment. Amendment 7.2. The board shall not conduct any inspection of any property without the explicit, written consent of the homeowner or a court order, regardless of emergency status, with the exception of active fire or flooding visible from the exterior. It passed with 98% of the vote. The only person who voted against it was Brenda Sterling. She became a pariah. When she drove her black SUV down the street, nobody waved at her anymore. When she walked her dog, people crossed to the other side of the road. She had lost her power, and without it, she was just a lonely, angry woman. She sold her house and moved out a year later. I hear she's causing trouble in some condo complex in Florida now. God help that board. I'm currently the vice president. I don't do much, mostly just approve requests for fence repairs and make sure the pool is clean. But I keep that video of the locksmith on my phone, just in case I ever forget why I'm doing this. Don't mess with a man's Bali vacation. And definitely don't drill his lock. I know what I did. I used my personal anger to drive a major community change. But was my motivation pure justice? Or was it just me using a rulebook I hated to execute a satisfying personal revenge? And does any HOA, even one I'm on, truly have the right to dictate what you do inside the four walls of your own home? Let me know in the comments below. Was I a hero or just another power-hungry HOA board member? Hit like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories where the little guy actually fights back.